Hello. Hello. Everybody loves Raymond fans. I hope you are well this Sunday morning. Sunday morning in Australia. Sunday night in England. Sunday afternoon in Hollywood. Saying hello. Welcome. Hello, Gil in the United Kingdom. I'm going to plug in my microphone. And you should be able to hear me now. Hello, Leo. Hello, Wendell Poons. Good evening from County. Now, do you say Durham or Dorham? My guess is the first way. Hello, Bobby in Hawaii. So good to see all of you guys on this Sunday. Hello, Mississippi. This Sunday, hello, Joey Novick. Is that Joey Novick comedy booker? That would be great. Hello, Teresa in Chicago. I am always happy to see your name. Hello, Karen Cooney. You can hear me? Great. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so the 16th anniversary of the final airing of Everybody Loves Raymond. I posted some really, really rare inside, behind-the-scenes photos of the airing, the final airing of Everybody Loves Raymond, which was March 16th, 2005, 16 years ago. And they're probably a little bit confusing. Now, just so you know, hello, Birmingham. Hello, Palm Beach. Yes, Joey, great. Great. Joey Novick, great. I see. Yes, Tina, love the pictures. So I'm going to explain those pictures to you. Yes, Leo, I said 16 years. Is it, did I write 15 somewhere? I'll have to correct it. Shall we have party hats on to celebrate? Yes. It was a momentous occasion, and I will take you through it. First of all, we filmed the finale January 30th. So we are talking about it airing 5 months after the filming. So I think on another, hello, Karen, on another episode, and maybe if Phil Rosenthal can join us, or maybe even Raymond, we can talk about the filming of the finale episode, because that in itself is about 2 hours of conversation. What day was the finale filmed? Yes, January 30th, 2005, but we kept trying. Hello, Victor, Jim, buddy, greatest comedy of all time. Oh, I'm not going to argue with you, but everybody has their own taste. All right, so let's go through the pictures. Let's set the table for May 16th, 2005. Now, in the world of network television, which is what, hello, Norway, which is what Everybody Loves Raymond was. There's in the United States, there were 3 main networks: CBS, NBC, ABC, and that was those were the main players in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then the 90s was starting to end. I don't want to get into specific dates, but cable came around. There were a lot more options. So for Everybody Loves Raymond finale, CBS wanted to get as higher ratings as possible. That's, of course, a natural. They just want to get more ratings because that just equals more money. So on the night of the finale, they put together a 1-hour special called, I completely forgot what it's called. The word laughter. Somebody will tell me in there. The last laugh, I believe. Everybody's Raymond, the last laugh. Yes, that's it, I think. which I did help out on, and a lot of my photos are in there, and I think I'm even in there. Yes, sorry. January 30th, 2005 was a Sunday. So that was caused by Patricia Heaton losing her voice, which I'll cover at another time. So May 16th is coming up. CBS puts together a 1-hour special called The Last Laugh. It's going to air before the finale of Raymond. So I believe from 8 to 9 p.m. will be The Last Laugh. At 9 p.m. will be the final episode of Raymond. So by the time it's airing, we have already had a party on stage that was the rap party. We've had a giant party that was the planned rap party that they couldn't cancel. So they had to have this planned rap party, which they spent a ton of money on. It's right next to where they show the Oscars, the Kodak Theater, which was not called the Kodak Theater then. That party we had. Then CBS wanted to have a press event rap party. So before May 16th, I believe, at Santa Monica Airport, they put together all of the sets of Ray and Frank and Marie's kitchen and Ray's living room. We had another party then, which was more of a press party. I will post pictures from that. So now it's May 16th. The cast is going to fly to New York. Some of the writers and producers fly to New York. So I'm in that group going to New York. For the event, they're going to have the cast of Raymond ring the opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange. They're going to do, I think it was Regis and Kathy Still at that point. So they're going to do that morning show. Then they're going to do other press. Ray is going to do David Letterman's show, which started around 4 p.m. The filming did. Then from David Letterman, they went to a museum, I believe, the Museum of Television and Radio, the Museum of Television and Radio, to give a speech. So those photos are in there. Everybody's saying a bad connection. Let me just see if I can help that out. If you have a good connection and everybody can hear me okay, let me know. Let's see this. Turn that Wi-Fi off. It could be an Instagram thing, everybody. So they have this whole day planned. So early in the morning, Ray and the whole cast go to ring the bell. I do not go to that. I go to the outside of that. It was a zoo. So I posted some pictures of basically the building that's across the street from the New York Stock Exchange. And I also have pictures of the outside the New York Stock Exchange, which is not as interesting. Then there's that race to do the Regis. Now, for those of you, I don't know. Okay, Kathy Lee left in 2000, so was Regis and Kelly Ripa. Yeah, I knew she was on. I didn't know if she was permanent. Thank you for that information. I love that. So they did that, and if you look up on YouTube right now and look at Everybody's Raymond cast, Regis and Kelly, that should pop up. And one of the things that you'll notice, because it's now 5 months after we shot the last episode, is Peter Frank is not doing that well. He looks very frail. And we knew that at the time of at the shooting of the episode. Great. Everybody has a good connection. That's awesome. Maybe it's random bad connections. So that was one, just as a little side note. You see, if you guys look up Regis and Kelly, if you look up that appearance, you'll see how frail Peter looked. And that's how we knew it was headed that way towards the end of the series. So that was one of the factors towards ending the show. So they go from Kathy Lee, they do some other press, and then they go to Letterman. Ray goes to Letterman. I'm there with Ray, and if you remember, I talked about it in one of my other lives. Ray, when he initially appeared on David Letterman, Mel Gibson was on that episode, and it was a really hot day. And so, as a bit, Mel Gibson and David Letterman cut off their pants, their long pants, to make shorts. And Ray was backstage, and he was sitting there going, I've never been on Letterman. I'm not a known comedian, and I'm going to try and decide, okay, do I cut my pants before I walk out? Because if he does and he gets a big laugh and it all goes well, then great. But if it doesn't go well, if David Letterman and Mel Gibson, if there's a feeling of you think you're a young comedian who's never been on TV and you think you belong making jokes with us, so he didn't know. So Ray decides not to cut his pants. So the significance of that whole story is, for the very last day of the Raymond press tour, Ray is at Letterman, and he tells the story that I just told you in a much better way, and he cuts his pants in front of Letterman. And he said, Dave, everything might have turned out differently. It might not have happened. This show might not have come about had I come out, cut my pants on my first appearance, and then bombed. And so that's why, when you look at those photos that I posted, and for those of you that have a bad connection, hopefully when this plays again, you'll be able to hear it. It'll play fine. Yes, Wendell Poons. It'll be all the fans in UK dragging the connection down. Very funny. So that's why in those photos, those few photos, Ray has cut off his pants. And in the previous live a long time ago, I told you that Ray asked me to switch pants with him so he didn't look crazy walking down the streets of Manhattan with cut off, a suit with cut off pants, because nobody would see him and go, oh yeah, that's what he did on Letterman, because that show hadn't aired yet. So Letterman aired, I believe, 11:30 p.m. The show was filmed at I think it started filming maybe at 5:30, 5 or 5:30. So from that appearance, and also Ray has to go to the Museum of Television and Radio. I think I'm correct in that. Someone might be able to look it up on the in the photos. You can see in the background it says some hall or something like that, and that might be a clue that is better than my memory. So Ray, they do that. Phil is there. The whole cast is there. Patty is there. That press happens. Now, we go downtown to the hotel. Now, for those of you that don't know Manhattan, I don't know why, but they put us in Battery Park, and I think it's like the Ritz-Carlton. Battery Park is the very bottom of Manhattan, so it's far away from everything. But it's close to the World Trade Center, which plays into the photos. So now there is kind of I would call it's not a ballroom, but it's a conference room. And if you know, in those big hotels, they will open up partitions so a room can hold 20 people or 100 people or X number of people. So they open up a room, they put in couches, and now we have a screen at the front of the room, and we're watching the CBS feed, the live feed of the East Coast. So for those of you not in the United States, there's the East Coast time is 3 hours ahead of West Coast time. So the first place it's going to premiere is in New York, the finale. So everybody was gathered in that room. Now, if you look at that photo carefully, you'll see Phil and Monica are sitting on a couch. Behind them, to their left, it's Ray, his wife Anna, Patty in a robe, and Brad Garrett. And then Lou Schneider's there, other writers, Steve Scrovan, their wives, they're all watching scattered about. And it was, to be honest, it was such a big room that it was a little bit, the energy was scattered. So if you ever go to a bar and it's a tight place, there's an energy there, and this applies to comedy clubs even more so. When you go to a comedy club and there's a low ceiling and the ceiling's right in front of you and it only holds 200 packed people like the Comedy Cellar in New York, that's the best. That is what you want. And so there was a little bit of a cold, diffused energy in that room, and when you look at the photos that I posted, you'll see, okay, that makes sense. But we're all excited. Patty, of course, Brad, Ray, I want to say they're exhausted because they've been doing press since early that morning, and they've flown in from New York. You'll see one of the photos. In one of the photos, you see Ray on camera on the screen, and it's Ray. It's footage of Ray's first appearance on Letterman. And you'll see somebody has their hand raised in the air, like pumping their fist in the air. That is Phil Rosenthal's hand, because he was celebrating, like, there's Raymond, and that moment changed the lives of everybody in that room. So when Ray did that first appearance, and I don't remember the date exactly, maybe May of 1995. Somebody can look that up. Ray's first appearance on David Letterman. I was there. I took pictures. I was backstage. From that point to May of 2005, the amount of change in Ray's life, Phil's life, Patty Heaton, who won 2 Emmys, Brad Garrett, who won, I think, 3 Emmys, Doris Roberts, who won every Emmy, their lives really changed. And so it was a very celebratory, emotional moment. And if you guys watch that original, or rather that final Letterman appearance, Ray gets choked up because Letterman completely changed Ray's life by launching the show. And then, of course, Phil brought it over the goal line by being the showrunner of the show. But there was so much work with all the writers, and even, Ray's manager, who had tried to got Ray on Carson and helped him all this time. So all of a sudden, it's this culmination. So if you watch that Letterman on YouTube, you'll see Phil is trying to thank Dave. Ray is trying to thank Dave Letterman, and he gets choked up. So yes, let me. So now you see Phil's hand is pumped in the air, okay, and now it's probably the show's over, and I'm guessing it's midnight. We've been up all the time. Patty, I think, took a shower and just changed into comfortable clothes, which in her case was a robe. Now here's the really cool part. If you'll look, I will post more pictures as soon as this is over, because it limits the amount of pictures you can post in one post. There's a lot of snacks on the tables, and you'll see this photo I post. Patty is holding a bowl of American candies. Goobers is one of them, a bunch of other ones. So Ray and Patty and Brad and Monica, they're like, you know what? All these construction workers are still working on the World Trade Center area, which had been knocked down, 4 years earlier. Let's go outside and bring them snacks. So what you see is the cast of Everybody Loves Raymond walking down the street at midnight to a construction site and just surprising these construction workers. Now, I don't know that anybody knows this story. I don't know that there are any photos other than the ones that I took that night, and I don't know how there would be. The iPhone came out in 2007, so it's not like nowadays where 20 people would have their phones out and be taking pictures. So for that crew, it must have been bizarre to see the cast walking down the street, to see Patty in a white robe. It just must have seemed crazy. So I will post more pictures from that night, but I just thought it was so admirable. But that after doing a day of press, nonstop press, and everybody wanted to talk to him, they still had the energy to go out to give some construction workers some snacks. Thank you to know. Yes, May 1995, Ray was on Letterman the first time. That makes sense because Ray did David Letterman. David Letterman gave him something called a development deal, which means we want to develop a show around you. And in the parlance of the network television, they call it, Ray is a piece of talent. And it sounds very, the first time I heard it, I go, that does not sound good. But here's this piece of talent that they want to develop a show around. So in May, okay, May 20th, I believe you. That's great. Thank you for looking that up. In May, Ray has this development deal. So it took Ray, that beginning of the development deal, they have to find writers. They interview writers. They find Phil Rosenthal. He writes a pilot. Now we're all the way to January of 96. The pilot gets picked up. The pilot gets shot, I believe, in March of 96. It gets picked up in May of 1996, and it airs in September of 1996. So that's your timeline. A lot of time passes. So let me go back now and look at other questions. How's the reception, Wendell Poons, in England? All right, let's see. Yes, the Kathy. Now, who has seen the Last Laugh 1 hour documentary? Give me some thumbs up or some hearts. Because that, if you want to see the inside and get a feel, great. If you want to get a feel for what it was like to work on the show and be behind the scenes on the show, I don't know if that's on YouTube. Let me know, guys, if you're watching, if it is on YouTube. It is probably pieces of it, I would imagine, are on YouTube, if not the whole thing. But I would highly recommend that. I have to send these photos to Brad and Patty, et cetera, because I don't know that they've ever seen them. And what was great is they spent time talking to all these construction workers there, and I'm reading some of your comments, and I don't know who any of them are. So I don't know if any of those construction workers have seen those photos, which would be great, especially 15 years later. Yeah. So Ray, just so you know, just talking about 9/11, Ray did an episode of Sesame Street, and I think I've mentioned to the viewers here that the entire cast flew into New York City on September 9th or 10th. I think it was the 10th, maybe, of 2001. I had a ticket for September 12th, I believe, 2001. So the cast was in New York City for 9/11, and it was for our launch of the DVDs, they were launched. The launch party, I think, was September 13th, 2001. So that went away. That's an understatement. And the cast helped. There was somebody they found walking in Central Park, his clothes were disheveled and covered with soot, and Ray gave him his clothes and took him to dinner. Took him to dinner. It's the least they could do because he had walked up to Central Park from the southern part of Manhattan, downtown, way downtown. Phil was doing the 8 seasons of Coach. Yes, I believe he was. An excellent point. All right, let me scroll up and answer some of your questions. And so I think watch that. If you watch that Regis and Kelly appearance, you'll see what it was like. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that final episode, filming that final episode. Now, I just want to give a little historical perspective. I don't know the exact number, but in the 70s, when you had a big hit and you had a final episode, there could be 30, 40, 50, 60 million people watching that. Seinfeld, which ended, I believe, May of 1998, I want to say they had 70 million. I'm not exactly sure of those numbers. Somebody can look that up. Raymond, I think we had 40 million for the finale, or 39 million or something. And I know that I think Mom, the very funny CBS TV series that just ended, their finale, I think, was 6 million viewers. So it has nothing necessarily to do with the quality of the show. It's just that the audience has shrunk. Everybody has an iPhone. Everybody is looking at, so the fragmentation of the audience is huge. And so there is no show now that can compete with the numbers that TV shows were getting in the 70s and 80s, and less so in the 90s and the 2000s. So it's very, very tough for them. All right, let me scroll back through these questions. Fire away with your questions. It's one of the things I love doing when I don't have a guest, because I'm not interrupting them. Let's see. From them, yes. Yes, okay, yes, that's a very good question. It took 3 times to shoot the finale. So the first time was scheduled for our normal shoot day, which was a Friday. Patty came in. She didn't have her voice. If you watch The Last Laugh, you'll see that happening live. You'll see Patty comes in, and she literally goes, they're on camera, and Phil's going, well, let me hear you talk. And Patty goes, and you can barely hear her. And so Phil's like, well, we can't do the show. So then we thought, okay, we'll shoot it again. I think we tried, Sunday. Patty was not great again, and I think Peter might have gotten sick. So then the following Sunday, I believe it was, because if you look up when Johnny Carson died, Ray, Brad, and I were standing by the craft services, which is a kitchen, as you all know, and the news flash came on that Johnny Carson had died. So if you look up that date, and somewhere there's footage of us watching that news, and for Ray and Brad, Johnny Carson was the pinnacle of late night hosts. So it was quite a traumatic event. So I want to say maybe Johnny Carson died January 25th or something like that. Yes, Teresa, Last Laugh is there in bits and pieces on The Last Laugh. Yeah, and I don't know if it's available anywhere. It probably is. Maybe you can buy it on Amazon, etc. Yes, so, okay, this is a little sad, but I will read it. Speaking of 9/11, did you know David Angel, screenwriter on Frasier, and his wife that were killed in one of the planes that hit the building? So horrible. No, I did not know them, but his partner, who I want to say he directed a few episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond. And so it might have been, I don't know if it was the baggage episode, but so David Angel's partner, whose last name is Lee, he directed. So I did know. But yes, a terrible event. Oh, great numbers. So Seinfeld was 76 million, okay, in 1998. So now, 7 years later, the ELR finale had 33 million. Great. Yes, and MASH, which was, I believe, 1982 or 83 or 84, somewhere in there, had the highest, scripted show, I think, for the longest time, and the biggest finale. Yeah, and I don't think that'll ever happen again, that you'll have half of the United States watching a show. Do you think Wendell Poon, do you think there would ever be the possibility of everyone or some of the cast crew getting back together to work on another sitcom one day? You mean the actors, because I don't know. It would have to be a completely different sitcom. Now, Phil has alluded, and we'll ask him when he's here the next time, that CBS, for the 25th anniversary of the premiere of Everybody Loves Raymond, might try and do a clip show, which I think, so my inside information, I was at Warner Brothers when they were filming the Friends reunion, whatever it is. So I think that that type of thing, where the cast just comes in and reminisces, and then you play the clips. So is there a possibility, never say never. the chance of it being an Everybody Loves Raymond reunion continuation sitcom of them now, I would say, is slim. Hank and Pat Store. Hank and Pat Store, really? That's so interesting. Tom, and maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Tom, I keep having an argument with my husband that you were in your 20s, at least started. He doesn't believe it. Can you confirm? Yes. Was I? Probably. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. Yeah, somewhere in there. Was it? Yeah, I think Tucker, I think it was the second youngest. I think Tucker was 27. Was it just the immediate cast or were extras in New York City as well? Hello, Marianne Longo. Where are you from, Marianne? I'm curious. Is there any way you are from upstate New York? So, was it just the immediate cast or were extras in New York City as well? So, just the immediate cast. Just the immediate cast, no extras. I mean, to be honest, it just costs a lot to stay in Manhattan. So, had we had this event in LA, everyone would have been there. But to put up the cast and crew would have been, it is a business after all. So CBS cares about the bottom line. So I think, just to give you a funny example, and I found the picture today, I'll post it. Tucker Cawley mentioned walking when the final episode was done filming. Cut, goodbye, big everybody crying, big photo, etc. I remember this way that Phil and I walked through the living room to go get a drink in the cooler where there was always just water or, soda, whatever. Nothing extravaganza. It's not like we were going to get some delicious scotch or something. And we walked, as we were walking back and go through the living room and see craft services in front of us, we see the cooler being wheeled away. So we're like, oh, there goes our drink. It just exited stage left. So Tucker remembers me being there with him, and I was like, I thought it was Phil, but I just found the photo, and Tucker is standing there with his arms outstretched, like, where is everything? It was a ghost town. So the kitchen was a ghost town. That was 12 minutes after the episode ended. The final episode ended, so they didn't want to waste a dime on us. So I believe the cost was the factor of having anybody else in there. I think your September 2001 trip to New York was for the launch of ELR syndication. No, that was for DVDs, but it was delayed. The DVDs were delayed. But I will double check because I have been wrong in the past. Because I think we had a DVD launch party. Somewhere I have the invite. Somewhere I have my tickets for September 12th, 2001. And I think the syndication, I'm trying to think of what and it very well could have been, but what was the hotel in Italy that the cast stayed in? I believe it was in Anguillara. I will find out from Phil. Oh, great. I mean, not great, but great that I have the information. Johnny Carson died Sunday, January 23rd, 2005. Okay, all my numbers add up. So that must have been the original finale was Friday. 2 days later, we reconvened because we're like, we'll shoot it 2 days later. That didn't happen. So then a week later was the 30th. Great. And for those into photography, I shot everything on film. Everything on Everest Raymond was film. So my 30,000 photos are filmed. So I have books and books and books and books of proof sheets. But I did get, and I think Raymond gave it to us, but I don't remember. He gave us at one point a Canon APS film camera, which is a crop sensor, okay? For those of you into photography, that's interesting. For those of you not, that's boring. But I did start shooting a Nikon digital camera towards the end because it was very small versus my big 35 millimeter camera, and it was much better in low light than film at the time. So I do have time stamps on some of these to corroborate the date. And actually on some of the film, on one of my cameras, I bought something so it imprints the date in between the negative frames. Ending the series by Ray and Deborah moving away from the parents. Michelle Figgins. Was there any consideration given to ending the series by Ray and Deborah moving away from his parents? So I don't know. I don't know whether I don't know what was in Phil's head or Ray's head, but I do know. So in other words, I don't know if Phil was speculating or Ray was going, maybe we do this. But I do know in the writer's room, there was never talk about that, because I think what Phil and Ray wanted is for you, the audience, to go, okay, they're still together and they still exist in time and space. So when you're watching the episodes, you're not thinking, oh, but it has, they moved away. But that's a really good question. Great. Could any actor parry Bruno? And for those of you that are just joining, this is Tom Caltabiano. I was a writer on Ever Brothers Raymond from season 1 to season 9, and I knew Ray before Ever Brothers Raymond, and I know them now. Could any actor change a line during the table read? No, they could not. So what they could do, so here's what Phil requested. Phil requested that at least, and this would be the quote, let me hear it once as written. Otherwise, we don't know what we're dealing with, because by the time you got to the table read, you had gone over those lines very, very precisely. So the actors don't know if a line that is early on doesn't have a callback. A callback is if you ever watch a comedian talking about something at the beginning of his act and then he mentions it again, that's called a callback in comedy. So he doesn't know, the actor doesn't know if that's not a pivotal part that they're taking out that will make no sense later. So Phil would always say, let me hear it once as written, and then, feel free to suggest anything. David Lee, yes. David Lee was the partner, yes, who was the he wrote, I believe, Wings. So he directed a bunch of episodes of Ever Brothers Raymond. Game of Thrones finale drew 19 million. Great. These are great facts. Thanks, you guys. Do another live table read like they did for Peter's charity. That was fun. Yes, KZ.B41. Hello, Trish. Hello, I'm from Westwood, Mass. Okay, great, Marianne. I know somebody from upstate New York who has the exact same name. South of Boston. Great. Cheers finale had 93 million in 1993. Great. Yeah, so you can see the numbers just went down. So Mom is a very funny show, but the audience just isn't there. The audience isn't there for network television. They just can't reach it. More ratings equals more money for the network. Who's paying the network? Advertisers? Yes, Leo, the question. Tom, I repeat this because the questions go away when this replays. Explain how more ratings equals more money for the network. Who is paying the network? The advertisers. So the entire pay structure of television, the reason there is so much money in television is because advertisers want to sell things. And so if Ford Motor Company, if Procter & Gamble wants to sell a lot of soap, CBS can say, we have a show called Ever Brothers Raymond. It's a bunch of families watching, and they buy a lot of soap, and they buy diapers, and they buy a lot of family-oriented stuff. We know that their key demographic is this, and we average 39.3 million viewers. Then CBS can go, so they set the rate. So if Procter & Gamble, who's a big soap manufacturer of amongst many other things, goes, well, we don't really want to pay that rate. And they go, okay, well, it's the best thing in town, which is why, best thing in town for reaching the most eyeballs, which is why the Super Bowl, when you read about it's cost $5 million for 30 seconds or something like that, it is money well spent. Because there's no other way that an advertiser can reach that many people in one fell swoop. So it sounds crazy if you're a normal person who doesn't have hundreds of millions of dollars, which I do not. It sounds crazy, but that is the way you reach the most eyeballs. So in the old days, it made sense. Now, nowadays, because of the split focus, so you're watching me on Instagram Live, that didn't exist 5 years ago. or 6 years, or whatever the exact number is. So now you have people on Instagram Live or Instagram, how have 5 million followers. So 5 million followers are on this little device that I'm talking to you. And a late night talk show on network TV might get 200,000 viewers. So there's a paradigm shift in the advertising model, but that's why the advertising is so important. That's why the numbers are so important. That's why you hear the demographic in the key demographic of 18 to 29 or whatever it is, 18 to 43. I don't know. Old people don't count to advertisers. I don't know why, because they seem to usually have more money to spend. Who came up with the finale episode story? That was pretty much a group effort, but Phil and Ray are always the leads in coming up with stories, and Phil did know that he could potentially kill Ray in the final episode because you don't need him anymore. So the audience could believe it. So that kind of fed into that thought that, okay, let's bring that audience to this emotional peak because they could buy it. If you did the finale episode, the second season of Raymond, and a doctor came out or the nurse came out and said he's not responding or we can't resuscitate him, the audience is going to go, oh, really? Because you're in season 2 of a hit show. You're not going to kill Raymond. But for the last episode, that was very, very possible. All right. Can I talk about a bit how the parents were cast and chosen? Brilliant casting. Lois and Warren, Hank and Pat. Yes, and I think I will. We'll talk about that more when Lisa Miller Katz will join us. Lisa Miller Katz was the casting. I think it's director. It's called. She was the casting department from the beginning to the end. But just real briefly, Karen, Phil always loved. So for Hank and Pat, right, Georgia Angle, he loved Georgia Angle, the actress. For Fred Willard, his part, Hank, he loved Fred Willard, who was brilliant. And so the characteristics he was looking for, because the Georgia Angle character is very similar to Phil's real-life wife, Monica, who played Amy on the show. So that was like the perfect fit. Lois also, I know, and Phil can talk about this more, and Lisa can, was also someone who Phil wanted. And I don't know about Robert Culp, to be honest. I don't know. He was great, but I don't know whether that was a Phil idea or a Lisa Miller Katz idea or somebody else. Yes, Karen, I wrote you mentioned a couple times that you wrote the Young Girl episode. Can you talk about the inspiration for that story? Yes, but I will talk about it another time. I'll either talk about it with Tucker Cawley, who was kind of pivotal in the events that unfolded that led to Young Girl, or Aaron Shore, who I wrote Young Girl with. But it is something that happened to me in real life. I was doing stand-up, and I was backstage at a place called the Hermosa Beach Comedy Magic Club with Gary Shandling and Kevin Nealon, and a woman came in with her daughter, and the daughter just started talking to me, and I invited her and the mother and daughter. I said, if you ever want to come to Everett's Raymond, and just the daughter showed up, and that kicked off the episode, which is a really good real-life event. Okay, hello, New Jersey. Lori Hansen, 25. Hello from Jersey. Love and miss this show. Literally watch reruns every night on TV Land. Yeah, and there was a question before of why. Can somebody explain how this came about? So this Instagram is just me and guests. And what motivated me to do this is I had been reading about I Love Lucy, and I read a couple of books, but a lot of the information wasn't that I had wanted to know was not explained in the books, because it was Desi Arnaz's autobiography and it was a story about Lucy. But I was curious, what were the wardrobe people going through? What was all that? So my thought was, let me try and tell the whole story. Let me have everybody from the smallest job to the biggest job on this live 1 hour every Sunday conversation, and also post some of the 30,000 behind the scene photos I have, and post post those photos with some explanation. So I hope that clears up some of the things. A big difference in numbers is because people do watch in great numbers, just not on the night it airs. Excellent point. People can watch in their own schedule now. Yes. So what's amazing, that's a really great point, Donnell .M.C.K. A big difference in the numbers because people do watch in great numbers, just not on the night it airs. Now, we talked about what a Nielsen family does, and they do try and factor that in now, but they have to give a rating. So they can't say, well, let's wait 6 months and see how many people have watched it when it plays back. So, for example, this here, little conversation we're having, many more people watch it after it is live. Now, the beauty of this live is you can ask questions live. But that, I think, all of those things, all of those factors, which is there's many more channels. You can record something and watch it back. Now, I don't know. Yes, TiVo did exist in 2005. So I do believe that's a big part of it also. You just watch it whenever you want. And it's the amazing thing is, I don't know if any of you guys watch this, but the original What's My Line, which aired, I want to say from 1950 to 1967 or something like that, there's a huge following for this old show on YouTube and Facebook. It's a show that 10 years ago, I'm sure it's sitting somewhere and nobody's watching it. And so people are watching it because there's this new way of watching these little clips. So there all of a sudden you see Lucy and Desi at the height of their prime having a casual conversation with this panel. So I think in the repackaging and the cutting up, like if you watch Everett Raymond clips on Instagram, it's like, oh, this is a nice 30-second clip in the way that I consume it. Okay, let's see. Going back. Great questions. Yes, killing off the numbers. Absolutely. Yes. Hello, Pam. What is your excuse? I'm kidding. You don't need an excuse. Frasier's finale had 33 million in 2004. Yeah, so that makes sense. Frasier won a ton of Emmys. Great show. 2004. So that's about the time we ended. So a year earlier. And I think Friends ended then also. So yeah, that makes sense. Yes, Bobby. Did I take any photos on show night during actual filming? Did the shutter sound present a problem? Only when I goofed. So yes, I took photos nonstop, never stopped taking photos unless it was a really quiet moment. So just to get a little bit inside baseball, when CBS sent a photographer, he had something called a blimp around his camera, which is a big box that has foam inside of it. So here's a camera. I always have a camera. So if I would walk around with this camera, a camera like this, then the set photographer would have a giant box around it. So he would be holding it like this, and it would make it silent. For me, I would just click away because I knew when the laughs were going to come. So I had the advantage of knowing when there was going to be noise because 200 people were going to start laughing. So every once in a while, I would click, and it would make a very loud noise. And for those of you that follow this, you saw I posted a picture of the boom operators. So every once in a while, I would take a picture, and I would mistime it, and it would be click really loudly during a quiet moment, and I would look up at the boom operators, and they would just shake their head because they know that when it comes time to be in the editing room, they would go, yeah, we have a little bit of a click in the background. But for the most part, I never had problems. Now, when I was on the set of Big Bang, I think when it was still on the air, the CBS photographer was there, who I knew from Everett Raymond. And now we have mirrorless cameras. So do I have a... So here's a... Good thing I have all my cameras. So here's a mirrorless camera. So this, you can hear this. It's almost silent. So now the set photographer doesn't have to have a blimp. Okay, for all you photography buffs, I hope that was interesting. As much as being big fans, I think a lot here, me included. Well, thank you for something to look forward to during lockdowns. Yes, build a great. Yes, thank you, Wendell Poons. Yes, I didn't know that this would become such a family of fans, which is great. Cheers filmed their finale. Now, is it AJ Delmonico? Is your first name A or J? Cheers filmed their finale second to last to avoid the emotional effect of filming week. Was there talk about doing that for ELR? What was the second to last ELR episode filmed? That's really, really interesting. You know, I will have Ken Levine, who worked on Cheers. He might have been at some point the head writer, but he was very involved in Cheers. He directed a couple of episodes of Everett Raymond, and he is an encyclopedia of Cheers knowledge as well as MASH knowledge, etc. I'm going to ask him that. So no, I don't think there was any thought given to doing that. It's a very good idea because I know Patty was crying at the table read. You know, it was a very, very emotional ending. So I don't know that that's not a bad idea. Now, did it affect the performance on show night? I don't know, but it was much more emotionally charged for that last thing. And I think, was Pat's Secret the second to last episode, or I don't know. Somebody will have to look it up. I have my list of every episode, but it was one of those. The Power No, Pat's Secret, something in there. Any particular episodes inspired by I Love Lucy? I don't believe so. I don't think so. It's a shame that we can't include the number of people around the world watching ELR now. Yes, that is very true, Karen, in Plymouth, England. I bet the numbers would be surprising. Yes, it's a very interesting thing because never in your wildest imagination would you think in 1996 that this technology where I can talk to people around the world would exist, nor would you think that a TV show would be shown around the world with such ease. How are things in U.S. now, Karen? Bars, restaurants open. I see Brad is back in Vegas. Are you working on anything in the moment? Yes, Karen. So it depends where you are in the U.S. So California is still very much shut down in some ways, and I think Florida has been open for about 7 months. So, but I would say the mood here is optimistic. I'm working on a bunch of things, including a kids' educational show. Even old passwords had big stars. Yes, Teresa, it's amazing. If you watch What's My Line on YouTube, the magnitude of the stars is astounding. And they're in this casual setting. And when somebody says, when somebody guesses who the mystery guest is, there's sometimes, if they guess it quickly, there's time to kill. And so now you see this giant star just casually making small talk. Let's see. Yes, Kelsey Grammer, great. Oh, can't say, Pam. Do tell me in a text. All right, so a few more questions before we wrap it up. I'm going to have Lisa Miller-Katz on. All she has to do is be willing to. She was the casting director, and she's great. She will fill in a lot of information. Also, I'm going to have a makeup person, a hair person on Raymond. Again, the biggest challenge is people have to give up an hour on their Sunday, and they have to be on Instagram, which always helps, because otherwise I cannot talk to them, like your friend Ray Romano, who is not. Thank you for encouraging me to buy a 35mm camera recently. You bought a camera? Good. Excellent. These are great. Yes, I would love to come. So, Karen, I would love to come to the UK and meet all of you. Phil and I went to the United Kingdom to shoot a food pilot, which was with Thomas Keller, and we spent about 12 days in London. And then I believe it was 2009, I went to Plymouth, England, and to London for the release of Beefeater 24. If you look up when was Beefeater 24 released, that's when I was there. And Phil had initially had in mind to do the Inside the Writers' Room, Everett Raymond, he wanted to tour. Now we did a show in Hawaii with Ray, and we sold out 2 nights in a row, 2,000 people. That was the height of the fame of Everybody Loves Raymond. So I don't know how many people want to hear from Everybody Loves Raymond people. Now I know Phil travels the world, obviously, because if you see Somebody Feed Phil on Netflix, you see Phil was in England. So maybe if he goes to Scotland, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Georgia and Catherine Hellman were on Coach. Yes, excellent. How do you think the show would have been today? I don't think the show would have gotten on the air today